Hi everyone, and welcome to my attempt at a Pokemon Emerald Kaizo Hardcore Nuzlocke. Yes, I know it's been a long time since my last video, but today I got something cool for you guys. It's an attempt at an Emerald Kaizo Hardcore Nuzlocke. Over the last couple of months I really haven't been uploading all that much, and that's mainly because I started to not enjoy the editing process. I have a total of 9 completed Hardcore Nuzlocke Monotype runs, of which a few are extremely fun and challenging. Now I will probably get to work on those sometime soon, but I'm not giving out any promises. Maybe I should start looking for an editor, but for now let's just dive into Emerald Kaizo. As you all know by now, Emerald Kaizo is one of the most difficult ROM hacks out there. And when you pair that with Hardcore Nuzlocke rules, you are in for a world of hurt, resetting and wiping. We'll be facing incredibly diverse and powerful teams, and we'll have to take on a bunch of legendaries as well. I mean, just look at the teams of the gym leaders. Roxanne is already insane for a first gym leader. Winona has all the legendary birds. Taylor and Liza have Latios and Latias. And the Reggies and legendary dogs are all found in the teams of the evil team leaders. Anyway, let's just give this game a go. I start the run by picking a Trico, who is in my opinion a super solid starter. Having a fast grass type attacker is insanely helpful, especially during certain sections of the game such as the Weather Institute. Mudkip and Torchic are also really nice, but let's just run with Trico for now. Also, since there's so many encounters in this game, I will be naming all the Pokemon after the route on which I caught them. This will just make things a little bit easier for myself. We do all the early game stuff, we beat May and receive our Pokeballs. Now the first order of business is getting a Pokemon in Little Root. Normally I would delay this encounter until I got a good rod, but this time I just fished for it. You can get a Luftisc here, but also a Goldeen. Luftisc is more likely and would be the better option because he would be our charm user, but we got a Goldeen instead. Still pretty solid, as Goldeen is actually a decently underrated Shuckle counter. I then buy a bunch more Pokeballs and we have some encounters coming up. On Route 103 there's one obvious encounter I really want, it's a Sunkern. Sunflora is such an amazing early game encounter, it's just not even funny. Luckily we did find one. Some other encounters here are Talo, an arguably even better encounter, but also things like Ekans and Apom, which really suck. Anyway, I go to Route 102 where I find a 1% Ralts, which is fantastic as well. I have a Gardevoir thread that makes one of the most difficult fights relatively manageable. Last up is our Oldale encounter, and best case scenario here is a Slugma. Growlithe and Cyndaquil and even Charmander would be nice as well, but Vulpix and Magma would be really bad. Luckily we got Slugma, so we have what is probably the best and most consistent early game set of Pokemon. I then go ahead and level everyone up with rare candies. Yes, I am using rare candies in this run because leveling everything up manually would just take way too long. This game requires you to use and strategize with literally every single encounter you get, so training everyone up individually is just a waste of time. There's also no EVs in this game, so I wouldn't really be getting anything out of it anyway. I then arrive in Petalburg City, and since I already have a Goldeen in Little Root and not a Luftisc, I am still in need of a charm user. By fishing in Petalburg, you can get either a Luftisc or Azurill, and the latter is more likely to appear. We fish and we find the Azurill, which is great. He also turned out to have huge power, which is the best ability it could have gotten. Normally I'd like to go for a grass encounter here as there are some super solid options, but we really needed our charm user for Brawly. Last up is yet another super important encounter. On Route 104 we can go for a grass encounter, but there's also a 100% chance of encountering a Magikarp when you fish with the old rod. Obviously we fish here and we catch ourselves a Magikarp. After that it's time to take on some trainers. There's a Birdkeeper here, but the Fisherman is probably the most notorious on this route. He has a bouncing Magikarp, a Feebas with an Ice move, a Luftisc and a Goldeen. If you go in unprepared here, it isn't uncommon to lose something. But going in prepared should ensure that you come out deathless. After all the trainers are beaten, it's time to hit up the forest. Now this place houses some incredible encounters. Basically everything is viable here with the exception of the Wurmple line. Possible encounters are Pineco, Volbeat, Illumise, Slackoth, Bellsprout and Oddish. All of these mons have use, whether it's to help against Roxanne, trivialize Brawly in the case of Illumise, or have access to a steel type move when Pineco evolves into Fortress. We ended up finding a Pineco who was luckily at a low enough level to not have learned Explosion yet. In the forest we also have our first encounter with Team Magma, and in this game the evil teams are actually scary. It's important to always start with your fire type here as the grunt sends out a Magnemite. Slugma is hit by a powerful Thunder Shock, but one-shots it with Flame Wheel. This baits in Coughing, who will go for Toxic, so I try Yawn but miss. I go for a few more as Coughing is really likely to just spam Protect and we still have an Oran Berry to recover some HP. We eventually hit, so I bring in Goldeen. A Psybeam does over half, but Coughing instantly wakes up and hits a Toxic. I equipped Goldeen with a Petra Berry for this exact reason, so next turn another Psybeam takes it out. In comes Houndour, who catches 2 Bubble Beams and goes down. Bacon is next, and since I'm at full health, I try my luck with Supersonic, but I miss. I then bring in Sunflora and 2 Mega Drains to do the trick. Duskull comes in and he also has a stall set, so I just spam my strongest move, Mega Drain. After some Protect stalls, we take it out, winning this battle. Right before we arrive in Rustboro, we have our first mini boss battle against Red. Red is actually in this game, and if you make it all the way to the Elite Four, you will have to face him 3 times. This time he has a pretty solid team and leads with Eevee. This Eevee will spam Curse and Rest and Snore, and if he's not dealt with quickly, he can do a lot of damage to a team. I lead Slugma and try to put it to sleep right away. Of course we miss, twice, but the third one hits. I then bring in Goldeen and go for a haste to nullify his curses. Eevee hits a massive Snore and you can see why this thing is scary. I then proceed to confuse the Eevee and use haste every time it curses. At some point, Goldeen is too low on health, so we need to switch. I bring in some Flora and 2 Mega Drains are once again enough to take it out. This brings in Charmander, so I swap into Meryl. We get burned, but we do massive damage with Water Pulse and Bubble Beam. Red swaps into Bulbasaur right before I could kill it though, so I make the switch into Slugma. We're put to sleep, but after 5 sleeping turns, a Flame Wheel takes it out. In comes Pikachu, who knows Surf, but is really likely to go for Thunder Wave first. I use this opportunity to yawn it, but a berry wakes it up. We can also take 1 Surf, so I stay in, but we stay paralyzed. Now it is time to switch, so our powerhouse Sunflora comes in and hits a Mega Drain. This leaves Pikachu in the red, but before you take it out, Red swaps into Charmander. But since Charmander was already pre-damaged, he just dies to the Mega Drain anyway. So this just leaves Squirtle and Pikachu, and Sunflora will just wipe the floor with both of them. This wins us our first semi-difficult boss battle, although Red 1 is fairly easy. Now that we're in Rustboro, it's time to get a few more encounters. On Route 116, we encounter a Natu. This isn't really the best thing here, as we can also find a Makuhita or Grimer here. 116 also houses Yanma, a really nice utility Pokemon as it knows Detect, but we could have also gotten an unknown, so Natu is okay. At least we have a flying type now. On Route 115, we also have the option to fish for a Kabuto or Ammonite, or we can delay it for potential Metagross in the late game. I think a Fossil is the better option for now, so I fish and find a Kabuto. Sadly it's Swift Swim and not Shell Armor, which would be much better, but at least it's something. We just gotta pray that he doesn't get crit against Roxanne. Now there's also a patch of grass in Rustboro City itself that houses many decent grass type Pokemon. But since we have a pretty solid Roxanne team already, and reviving a Fossil in the mid game counts as a Rustboro encounter, I decided to let this one go. But now it is time for the first gym. The trainers here are already pretty difficult. Most notably, there's a Sudowoodo here that can easily sweep with Calm Mind Ice Punches, but I think the powerful Larvitar with Earthquake and the Exploding Onyx are the most scary here. Luckily, a Trico is usually fast and strong enough to deal with most of these threats, but you should be prepared. Before we face off against Roxanne, our Slugma evolves into Magcargo, which will be our Lileep counter. For this team, I have a strategy in mind. Roxanne always leads with Nosepass, who always goes for Thunder Wave and is equipped with a Citrus Berry. I say always, but he can sometimes explode, but it is really unlikely. If we go for Double Kick here, we damage the Nosepass enough so that Bullet Seed will kill, but not enough so that the Citrus Berry will activate. This makes sure that Nosepass is always going to be a 2-shot kill, and since he will Thunder Wave us, it's basically a free kill. This baits in Lileep, who will Sludge Bomb us, so we bring in Magcargo, who is holding a Petra Berry. We then use Will-O-Wisp, and the burn is important for 2 things here. It does some chip damage, but it also halves Lileep's attack, meaning it will start to go for Giga Drain instead of Ancient Power. And this ensures that he does not get lucky with a random Omni Boost. From here it's going to be a long stall battle. We're just spamming Flame Wheel and recover when we get low on health, and so does the Lileep, he just keeps recovering as well. This goes on for a long time, but Magcargo is made for this. This is exactly why Slugma is such a good encounter in Oldale. Eventually the Lileep goes down, and with Magcargo out, we bait in the Anorith. Magcargo baits a Rock Slide, so we go into Kabuto, who resists it. Since we outspeed, we can go for the one-shot with our own Rock Tomb, and this here is why getting the fossil Pokemon is so good. In comes Relicanth, and with Kabuto out, we can go for a powerful Mega Drain to do some damage and recover some HP. We also get lucky as Relicanth misses his Yawn, so next turn we can just take it out with another Mega Drain, leaving us at near full HP. We are confused though, but since Shuckle came out, we need to switch anyway. I bring in Goldeen and fire off a few Supersonics. Since Shuckle likes to curse a lot, I go for a Haze as well. Shuckle Toxics us, but we have a Petalburg to take care of that. And then go for some Bubble Beams, spam Supersonics and Hazes every time they're needed, but eventually we get Toxiced again. Shuckle is also in a rollout streak, so there's some good damage coming our way. Luckily Kabuto resists that, so we can swap him in and 2 Rock Tombs do the trick. Last up is Lunatone, who is super scary. He has Hypnosis and Confusion, and he can do some massive damage. I decided to use the Mega Drain as Lunatone hits a Confusion, bringing us to 1 HP. I then swap into Sunflora, who gets flinched and put to sleep right away, so he's basically useless now. I then make the switch to Grovyle and go for a Bullet Seed, which crits and takes out Lunatone. And just like that, we beat the first gym leader. Roxanne is pretty difficult, but with a solid team, she is pretty consistently beatable. Now that Roxanne is beat, it's time to take on Route 116. I haven't faced any trainers as getting the tunnel encounter early just wasn't really worth risking these battles with our lower level Pokemon. We can now pretty much steamroll through this route and arrive at the Rustboro tunnel. There's some really good options here, but probably the best one being a Rockhead Geodude. The worst one is probably a Nosepass or a Dunsparce, but we got a solid Phanpy. Sadly, he will not have battle armor, so that really sucks, but Phanpy and Donphan are both really solid Pokemon in this game. We also have to take on a Team Aqua Grunt, but he sucks and is dealt with easily. With all of that behind us, we can now go to Dewford Town, where another set of encounters awaits us. First off, we go into a grass patch, where we find a Mankey. Now Mankey is especially awesome, if he meets some criteria. With 17 speed and 17 attack IVs, a Mankey can basically sweep all Flannery's Pokemons. And Flannery might be one of the most difficult gym leaders. We got super lucky and got the Mankey with 24 attack IVs and 22 speed IVs. This basically means that Roxanne is free, if we get there. We can now get 2 more encounters, a guaranteed Clamperl and a guaranteed Seal. For now, we delay the Granite Cave encounter as Steven's room has the best set of possible encounters, and that room is actually only available after we beat Brawly. Brawly's gym trainers are also no joke. Seriously, these guys are super strong and annoying. I would advise to get yourself a version of EK Hex and plan these battles. It will all depend on your encounters, but there is one cool trick I wanted to show. The last trainer is Battlegirl Jocelyn, and if you have a Gyarados at level 20 exactly, you pre-damage your Gyarados to 1 HP and outspeed and 1 hit KO everything with Flail. The best part? You will also stay just under the level cap. As for Brawly himself, he is really just one big RNG fest. Most of his mons have moves that can flinch or paralyze you, so even if you have a super solid Brawly team, it's no guarantee that you'll actually win. Luckily, we have a Sunflora who can set up and sweep nicely here, but we do need to do some planning beforehand. Brawly leads with a Hitmontop, who will always go for Fake Out. So I leap a Gyarados to get in an Intimidate and then swap right to Kabuto to take the Fake Out. Kabuto resists it, taking minimal damage, but he also baits a Mach Punch. So we just swap straight into Gyarados, who resists the Mach Punch, but also intimidates it again. This then baits Rock Slide, which is resisted by Kabuto, and so on and so on. At -4 attack, we swap into Sunflora and we proceed to set up some growths. Of course, Hitmontop hits a crit first turn and breaks through all the Intimidate drops, but we can luckily just use Synthesis to get our health back. At +5, we use Mega Drain to one-shot the Hitmontop, baiting in the Poliwrath. He too goes down to a Mega Drain and in comes Hitmonlee. He lifts the Mega Drain, but the next one takes it out. Hitmonchan comes in and he also lifts one, but 2 Mega Drains take it out. This leaves Sunflora at 5 HP though, and since he's slow, we just need to switch here. Expecting a Fake Out from Meditite, I go into Gyarados and get off an Intimidate. We then do the Gyarados and Kabuto dance twice and swap to Azumarill. He hits a Charm and at -4 I bring in Natu and hit 2 Aerial Aces. This leaves just a Hariyama, so I swap into Azumarill and hit a Charm. Sadly, we can't get off another due to 2 Paras in a row, but we still have Gyarados and Kabuto, so we can Intimidate Hari further down. Now at -6 attack, we hit some Flails before swapping into our Shell Armor Clamperl. Since Clamperl can't hit due to its ability, the -6 attack is permanent, and we can easily chip away at him with Clamp and Water Pulse. This eventually wins us our second batch. This battle was a lot easier than it should be, as Sunflora could take 4 months, but overall, this went pretty smoothly. As for recommendations, I recommend always taking Gyarados with you for the Intimidates. as well as having a mon that resists rock moves, so you can pivot between the two. Other than those two, having a charm user like Azumarill or Loftisk will be super helpful here. That's really why I wanted to have a charm user in the beginning of the game. Basically anything that lowers attack plus a shell armor mon like Clamperl that's neutral or resists fighting and rock moves is a solid Pokemon here. But with Brawly behind it, it's time to go to Steven's room. There are a few encounters here that are far better than the ones in the early Granite Cave part, but it isn't really by that much. After going through this stupid ice puzzle, we arrive in Steven's room and find a Makuhita. Honestly not the best, but not the worst either. We can now also go to Slateport, where the beach section is still Route 109. Here there's a 100% chance of fishing up a Squirtle. We catch one, but to be fair, Squirtle really isn't all that good in this game. Before we enter Slateport, there's this little beach gauntlet we need to take on, after which it's time to face 2 consecutive Team Aqua grunts. As prep work, we get Gyarados back to 1 HP again for some flail strats. The first grunt leads with Shelter, so we make the immediate swap into Sunflora. He takes an Icy Wind but retaliates with a Mega Drain to take it out. In comes Lombre, but Sunflora now knows Sludge Bomb, so we take it out in one shot. Vigoroth then comes in and I hit a pretty hard Mega Drain. One more takes it out, which brings in Grimer. I then swap into Phanpy, who is poisoned on the switch in, but can 2-shot the Grimer with Mud Shot. Croconaw comes in, so I bring Sunflora back in and Oko it again with Mega Drain. The Staryu then meets the same fate, taking out the first Team Aqua grunt. Without having the chance to heal, we take on the next, but Garrett's Flail strats work wonders here. We Oko the Wynaut with Bite, Chinchou goes down to Flail, Dratini goes down to Flail, Smoochum goes down to Flail, Clamperl goes down to Flail, and Wilmer goes down to Flail. Gyarados is amazing. Now I do want to note that there are several encounter spots available right now, but the right strategy to follow right now is to delay these encounters to maximize our chances of finding a Volt Absorb Lantern. So for now we skip the encounters on the upcoming route and in Slateport City and make our way to Marvel. Along the way we have another rival fight against May this time. Now May isn't as scary as Red or the evil teams, but she can still do some good damage to her run. She leads with Minun as I send in Donphan. A Mudshot Oko's hit, bringing in Nidorina. He too is hit hard by Mudshot, but we need 2 to kill it here. Before we hit the second though, May switches into her Bayleaf. I bring in Hariyama and hit a crit fake out. I then send a deck twice before going for some force bombs. With Bayleaf down, in comes Pidgeotto. I swap into Kabuto and Oko the Pidgeotto with a Rock Slide. Combustion comes in, so I swap into Gyarados. And then bring in a Azumarill and hit 2 charms. I follow that up with a Waterfall, which crits, taking it out. In comes the weak Nidorina, so I go for another Waterfall. Last up is Wartortle, and I stay in to tank the fake out, after which I swap into Gyarados. I hit a Bite and Flail to bring it into the low yellow, but I need to switch, so I bring in Hariyama. A fake out plus Force Palm combo takes it out, winning us this battle. After that I make my way to Marvel City and I pick up a Goodrod. I also found my Marvel City encounter, which ended up being a Voltorb. We're going to use this Voltorb to bait out a VA Lantern. The way to do this is to fish for a Chinchou and use an electric type move on it. If it hits, its ability is Illuminate and we just run away. But if it does nothing, we know that it has Volt Absorb. There are 3 spots where you can find a Chinchou, on Route 110, in Slateport and the route east of Marvel. I always start with Route 110 as it houses some pretty bad encounters. We fish here, but sadly we got a Tentacool. Tentacool is probably the second best here, so it's not too bad, but I would have liked to see a Chinchou. Anyway, we catch it and try our luck at Route 118. Here we do get lucky and fish up a Chinchou. And it has Volt Absorb. This is perfect. This also leaves us an extra encounter in Slateport, where I choose to go into the grass and get another electric type. I end up finding a Mareep, which is decent. I would have liked to see an Electrike, but oh well. Before taking on the gym, there are a few more tasks we need to complete. First up is beating Wally. He has a level 70 Ralts with Pain Split, but honestly this looks much scarier than it actually is. Magarigo takes care of it easily. After that, we clear some of the trainers on Route 117 to open up our next encounter. On Route 117, it makes most sense to fish. I fish up a Corphish, which is actually pretty good, but it's no Barboach. A Psychic immunity though is huge, so this could have gone worse. We then take on the rest of the trainers and reach Verdanturf. In Verdanturf there's another patch of grass which houses ground type Pokemon. We end up finding a Sandslash, which is honestly pretty good. We could have gotten a Swinub here for example, and that would be complete trash. As I've said before, gym trainers in this game are no joke. And it's no different here, and I believe Wattson's trainers are the most difficult so far. We did get through unharmed though, and now it's time to prep for Wattson. Wattson is super difficult, and it's the main reason why you need a VA Lantern. However, we have a Sunflora, and with the right preparations, he can once again sweep through this gym. We need to battle with Fluffy as Wattson sent out Jolteon. The plan here is to paralyze the Jolteon, but since he has a Lumberry, we need to hit it twice. We do have to dodge a crit here, but it all works out. With Jolteon paralyzed, I swap into a pre-burned Sunflora. I burn it purely so that it cannot be paralyzed later on. We now set up our 5 growths again and recover in between. At plus 5, we hit a Giga Drain for the Oko and in comes Lantern. He hits a mean Ice Beam, but we live and we Oko him as well. Ampharos then comes in and hits a Fire Punch, but thanks to the Giga Drain recovery, we once again live it. He too is one-shotted and in comes Electabuzz, who is once again one-shotted. Manectric then comes in and hits a critical hit Flamethrower. The crit was just waiting to happen and I think I got really lucky by dodging 4 so far. Still, I could have played this better by swapping into Gyarados here on the Flamethrower. This would have then baited Thunderbolt, which would lead to a safe swap into Donphan, but instead I now have to free swap into Donphan anyway. But we did have our first death. 2 Mudshots then take care of the Manectric and last up is Raichu. I bring in our VA Lantern who can easily take on this Raichu one-on-one. If at any point we get low on HP, I would just swap into Gyarados to bait the Thunderbolt and swap right into Lantern to get healed with Volt Absorb. We now have the first 3 badges in our pocket and only 1 death, Sunflora. Sunflora has been absolutely amazing, but he would fall off really quickly after Wattson. He really isn't that useful anymore, so his death isn't all that bad. But now that we defeated Wattson, we're officially in the mid game, and things are about to get a lot more difficult. Flannery is insanely difficult, Norman is actually kind of easy, but Winona is super difficult again. And I haven't even mentioned how we need to be the legendary before facing even another gym. Anyway, since this is already a pretty long video and we're only at the 3rd gym, I'm going to split this run up into several videos. So right now we have the first 3 gyms and I'm probably going to do 3 gyms and then a separate video for the Elite 4 if we get there. So far we've done really well in the early game and we only have 1 death so far. We also have a pretty solid box and we had some incredible luck with our early game encounters. Getting a Slugma, a Sunkern and a Ralts and a Pineco all in the same run, it's just incredible. So this run is really shaping up to be something great and I really hope to get the next video out soon as well. Anyway, I want to thank you all for watching and I will see you in the next one.